one of the topics I have today, and let's see, how to make sure you don't run out of money in retirement. I'm referencing an article from Investopedia. As you know, I do considerable reading. I was reading a piece uh, by some authorities, and I'm going to go back to that article because it was kind of powerful that you don't realize how much reading people do, and those that are experts in their fields and authorities in their field of how much reading they do. I can simplify it for you because you can tune into the show. I do a lot of content of that, but you'd probably be kind of shocked at how much there. But that's why I stay abreast of everything, and my knowledge base and thinking and how I do things continues to evolve. And that's how our firm, as an advisory firm, constantly evolves and gets better from that standpoint. But yeah, this article from Investopedia, and it's by Catherine Paul-Jug. And that's one of the things that's kind of important, is making sure you've saved money for retirement, but you also don't want to outlive that. So from her standpoint, living on a fixed income requires thoughtful planning and spending. These 5 tips can help ensure you don't outlive your savings. That's where you don't want to get to the back end of that. Why might that happen? Could because you're overspending and you don't really know how to look further down the road. Or you've lived longer than you expected to. And that's kind of important as well. Takeaways in the article are: financial planners say retirees are more likely to outlive their savings due to poor planning and spending habits. And that's another reason, is to have those conversations with a financial advisor. They also say experts recommend keeping 5 years of income needs in safer assets and tracking expenses closely to avoid premature portfolio depletion. And the third is, while Social Security's future is uncertain, advisors urge focusing on factors you can control, like when to decide, or let me reword that, like when you decide to collect benefits. With Social Security feeling uncertain and the cost of living on the rise, many Americans are worried that they will live longer than their savings. I think Social Security is a really important of the decision process, and that's one reason we do an analysis. And even when folks come in for a first visit, that and kind of have that initial discussion and fit visit, get to know us and we get to know them. There's a number of things we prepare for your second visit. It's like going to a doctor and, okay, we're going to run these different tests, and when you come back in, we're going to go over that. There's probably anywhere from 4 to 8 different analysis we can run for you, subject to what happens in that first visit. But one of them for sure is that Social Security analysis for both of you in the couple and your situation, and give you some recommendations on what you might need to think about on when to turn that on and what's more effective. And sometimes it comes back where for the spouse, probably is a good time to turn that on now while the primary breadwinner in the household continues to defer. And I'm not going to get into the weeds, but there's different scenarios, and there's kind of been some cases, yeah, it's kind of time for both of you to consider that. Might be the case as well. So I think that's an important decision. And we do that for clients every year until both have turned on Social Security. It's that important of a decision. So number one thing to do is spend time on planning. Planning is one of the most important steps to make sure you don't run out of money in retirement. You don't just pick an age. You want to stop working and assume things will work out. You need to know where you are on the path and where you are going. Sometimes the initial conversations when a family comes into the office is they're kind of like, when can I retire? Or can I retire next year? Or they might not know when that is. Can I retire now? It is often a question, but they're also wanting to make sure that window matches up with when they're wanting to retire and can I? And sometimes the conversation goes, hey, you're working now because you want to. Or, yeah, you kind of need to go a few more years. You may have to go longer because you just haven't got there. Everybody's at a different place, and retirement is not a one size fits all. It is everybody's situation is unique. So you've also got to think about that time horizon. The economy is going to fluctuate during retirement, and withdrawing from retirement accounts during market downturns can significantly reduce the value of your savings. So you could be great shape when you retire. And even if you've kind of started this process on your own and you've done it yourself, you could have impacted and this go the wrong way because of market fluctuations. And in this article, they suggest keep 5 years of income needs in safer assets like cash, CDs, or short-term bonds so market drop doesn't force withdrawals from stocks at a worse time. Because when you take and you're spending from a stock market account and it's gone down, well, you see the history. There's been dips in the past. Heck, the NASDAQ at one point earlier this year was down 20% for a short period of time. So if you were taking income from that, what'd you do? You locked in losses based on previous highs. So once again, you want to avoid taking withdrawals from stocks and bonds and so forth at their worst time. Then the bulk of your savings can stay invested and allow it to keep growing when the market turns around. And we think there's multiple categories of how investments should be invested because everything shouldn't be based upon growth. During your working years, yeah, you can be more heavily in that, but you've got to have a stable area where you're taking income from. And I do believe in that 5-year period as a minimum. But we also have a process of replenishing that. And sometimes that box might not be a 5-year box, but it might even be a longer box as well, where we're taking income from an area that will not go down in value. And that allows the rest of the assets to run. And we really want to always look a decade out where those assets are that we're wanting to let run. And it isn't like we're shifting all that money in over in 10 years, but you think of that money over there that we're allowing it to run, we will shift money over time to that safer strategy of where you're going to take income from. And this isn't something you just start at retirement. I'd say 5 years prior to retirement, you need to be thinking about how you have that balance starting to be created there, because you also don't want to have those assets running hard, so to speak, and then at retirement time, okay, we're going to make that shift. Well, what if you had a dip happen at that time? Are you wanting to put off retirement? I think not. This needs to be done in a way that no matter what the market's doing, your retirement time that you've selected should be able to flow and move into that transition. You also need to track your expenses. It can be easy to assume you have plenty to spend in retirement, but if you spent all these years savings and you aren't tracking your expenses, you might run through savings before you realize it. And that's one of the questions in sitting down with families, kind of like, what are your monthly expenses? what is your monthly income? And you know what? That's people don't know that off the top of their head. In most cases, it's something they have to think about. And you need to go and look at what's happened. And this is one reason I like the cash report. I like to see what my inflow and outflow is on a monthly basis from a personal standpoint. From a business standpoint, I look at that on a weekly basis. But from a personal household standpoint, I want to see what my inflow is versus my outflow. And if you're doing that, you kind of know, yeah, Gregory, we know what we spend every month on things. They ebb and flow a little bit because of shopping here and there, but that's kind of loosely what we spend a month. That would be great if everybody knew that, but that's not the norm. But that is something that you have to adjust to. You have to have an understanding of your expenses, and sometime when you should at least yearly do a spending audit. I kind of at times have used that as a budget audit, but sometimes you might want to think of that as a spending audit to kind of see where can we trim, what kind of waste has developed. And then the other thing is to keep spending dynamic. Another mistake to avoid is assuming your spending can stay the same each year. Retirement spending should be dynamic, meaning higher in good markets, leaner in down years. The retirees who stay solvent are the ones who adapt when conditions change. And that is to have those consultations of knowing how spending, how savings going. One of the questions we check on each year, how is emergency savings? Is that stable? Has that increased or has that gone down? If it's gone down, why from that standpoint? In addition to tracking your spending, track the market. Pay attention to how far your dollar stretches. Save big expenses like travel for times when the market is up and avoid debt when you can adjust your daily expenses more easily when prices rise. I don't necessarily want to time my vacations by, oh, market's up, I can do that. It should be part of the flow and budgeted in, not just on good market years. I think it should be more consistency and discussion about how things are going, and use your advisor as a sounding board, and be thoughtful about Social Security. Many Americans are worried about the future of Social Security. I don't worry too much about that. I don't think it's going away, but there might be tweaks in it. That's coming. I'd say worry is understandable, but panic, you shouldn't panic over it. Social Security, if the trust fund's basically kind of depleted, but they're going to make some tweaks. The system may adjust through smaller cost of living increases, higher taxes, or later eligibility. But I'm going to tell you, my opinion and what the article references, the benefits aren't vanishing. For younger investors, experts suggest planning retirement without counting on Social Security to create more flexibility. I agree with that. Now, back end of life, Social Security is a part of the mix. But if you're in your 20s and 30s, pick an income goal and start saving towards that. It's too far out to know and place, but you're going to get some benefits from Social Security. Everybody is what the expectation is. But I wouldn't, in my 30s or even early 40s, put that as a part of the factor. I'm kind of like, if I have $1 million in retirement savings, build up my 401k, this is the income I can build from that. That's the kind of the certainties of what you can control. And the other will be pluses, whether you have a pension, Social Security, those type of things that's added to the mix right there. I think that article kind of gives you some good help right there. That's going to be put up on our blog, also over at gregoryricks.com. I think that was a pretty good piece from Investopedia. You get to do reading, you get to add all this different knowledge to your foundation and become better with your money.